And part of the homework that you had was to create that table. So if everybody can sort of open up their that spreadsheet with their table section, and what we're going to do is take a look now at putting those in. Again, that's going from the setup, food and beverage, restaurants, pull up the restaurant, and then go to manage tables or manage sections. We'll start with the sections. So I'm making the assumption here that everybody was able to fill in that table, and even if it was just simple table 1, 2, 3, and 4, but that has been completed. Is that correct? So we're going to do a little test then. What I'm going to do is let's start with, I'm going to go with John here. So John, I'm going to let you have keyboard and mouse. You can now take over the screen, and if you can put in one of yours from your worksheet. So we want to do a section and then put 2 tables onto it. Okay, perfect. So small patio section and the description small patio 1. Okay. Now let's close this out and let's add a couple tables to it. So let's say there's 2 tables out on the small patio. So remember, John, that we're working in the sections right now. These aren't the tables yet. So the sections would be like the area of a specific restaurant. So the bar area, the fireplace area, the patio area. And then within those, we'd have tables that would be assigned to each one of those. Okay. Well, John's getting a little stuck here. I think he just probably needs to nudge in the right direction. So like I mentioned, we created the sections, so the small patio or the fireplace area or the bar. We then close that. We're going to save those changes. Oh, we'll clear that. Now we'll close it. Now what we do is we go to the actual tables that could exist within those sections, and we add them in here. So we had the one that was the patio, so we'll create a table ID here, and we'll call this patio 1. It's going to be in the section, small patio. And the description, if I had a special name for this table, you know, I could have this as John's table. Remembering again that the table ID is more what the system uses, the description is more what the user uses. We have all these. We click Save, and it puts our table in there. And then we would repeat the same process for any of our other tables that exist. Personally, I usually build the entire section all at once and then move on to the next section. But again, you can use what's going to be the best and easiest for you. If in the case that all we had was one section, then we just go through and put in all the tables we want and attach them to the same section. So John, you ready to pick up and put in a couple more tables here? Okay, so close this screen out first and we'll start again. Okay, so what we're going to do is click on the clear to make sure that we're starting a new one. Perfect. And then we click into the table ID and we go with the table. So whatever table number we want to call this, whatever we want the system to recognize it as. Perfect. Okay, if we want to attach it to the same section, we would pull the magnifying glass on the section ID. There we go. And this would list all the different sections we've created. You can either double click or hit select. Perfect, and hit save. Okay. Pretty straightforward, John. Is this coming back to you now? You just need that little nudge. Perfect. Okay, so I think John's pretty good. He's got a good handle on this right now. We're going to change it up. And we're going to give control over to Scott. Scott, let's go put in a menu section and a table. Perfect. Okay, and now let's go attach the tables there. Oh, I like this. Scott's thinking ahead, so he's got a table ID of MD for main dining room. I like that. Perfect. Okay, so I'd say, Scott, you got a pretty good grasp of it as well. We're going to move on here. We're going to try someone. Let's see, I think we have, let's go with Keith. Keith, if you want to go and put in another section and then attach a table to it. So first we're going to start off creating a new section. So we're going to want to close out of the tables area and work within the menu, or I'm mistaken, in the dining room sections. There we are. Cafe, perfect. Okay, so now that we've got our main cafe section, we can put tables into that section. Okay, so now again, table ID, you can use similar, so if you have table 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can use those again and again for different sections, because there can be a table 1 in the main cafe, the main dining room, the main patio, and patio 2. They can all have table 1. So you can do it that way. But I do like the usage here of the table identifiers using the MC and the MD. That is very, very easy to read. Okay, so that's basically setting up the tables. Review from last week. Seems like everybody's doing well, understands it, so we can move on from here. Okay, so we're done in the restaurants area, and we're actually now complete in the setup menu. We're going to move over now to the cards and the food and beverage section. Okay, so if everybody's referring back to the agenda that I sent out, we're now on section 2, and we're just going to go down through the list first. Again, I apologize, this is going to be sort of the boring part. It's just going to be me lecturing about what the sections do, but then like we did last week, we're going to do some hands-on practical. Okay? So the first section I wanted to start at was the menu items. And I've already, in all of your databases, there is a sample item that I've created as a burger, just to show you layouts of what everything is. So we're going to go from the menu item. And this is what's going to be seen on the point of sale. So this is where we set up our point of sale listings of all of our items that we sell. In the top field here, this is going to be the listing of everything that you've created. So in my case, we have the burger. And when I look at it, I get my item ID, so again, the system, the description, a nice way of presenting it, its classification as a food item, the cost of the item, so that's going to come, we're not going to put in cost information, so we don't have to worry about that. The list price is what we're going to sell it for. So at a quick glance, you can sort through these, look for items. You can click on the headers to sort, either ascending or descending. You can also search through here for either the item ID or the description. Now it's going to search through that table. Once we have an item, we look to the bottom section, and this is where it's going to tell us details about the item that we're currently highlighting. So we get our item ID.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
Your item ID you have is burger. Is it easier to have it be part of the description, or have it just be a number, or does it matter?
For this example, because it is an example, I did just straight out burger. For practical, what I would do is identify it with a number. So each one of your courses, I assume, has a specific number referring to course code. I would preface the item ID with that number and then put the item. If you want to get really technical, and what I think would work really, really well, is to go your course number, then the area that this item belongs to. So if it's a banquet item or a banquet prep, you could put like BP, and then put what the item actually is. So this could be burger as your final bit. And then in the description, you can put that sort of, like I say, the nice way or the human way of looking at it, and that'll solidify exactly what that item is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So again, like I said, the description, you can use it. It's limited to about 50 characters. And try to be as precise as you can be with explaining what it is. This is what's going to show up on the button on the point of sale. We go down a little further and we have this type. And basically what this is going to control is where does it get printed. Food will go to the kitchen. Beverage goes to like a server station. Alcohol will get printed at a bar. Snack doesn't get printed anywhere. If it's a self-served item, so the easiest way I think of these is the like the fast food restaurants where you get a cup for your drink and then you go over and you pour your own drink. That would be a self-serve item example. The hot and cold would affect which hot and cold printer. We're not worried about that, so we can just leave those as is. List price, so here's where you're going to put in what is the menu price for that item. the price override. Do you want this item to be available so that your servers can change the price on it? And we have a couple of options. One, no override. Means it cannot be changed. The allow override. So it's going to use the current list price, and there will be an option if the user clicks on it, there's an option to override the price. Or the third option is that there is an override, and when the item comes up, it will prompt the server to put in an override price. Where I've seen the override auto prompt is commonly used for daily specials or market price type items. So again, if you have like a special fish that comes in at a special market price, that's where I would assign that. But for most of your items, the no override works pretty well. If you want the button to show a specific color, you can pick that color and assign it so that way your buttons, maybe all your red items are, protein items. Your yellows could be all your appetizers, something like that on the screen, so it's quite visual. The activation makes the item active or inactive. If inactive, it can't be sold. So again, talking like daily specials, if you run out of them, you could mark it inactive and no one else can order. With limited quantities, we have a couple of options here. So if it's unlimited, so it's a regularly stocked item and you keep selling it, leave it as unlimited. If you have a limited supply, you mark limited and you can type in what you have remaining. So if you start off with 100, it'll start depleting from that. When you get down to 0, it won't be able to order by anybody. Your tax schedule, that'll be whatever tax, and that's already been assigned. Sales account, that'll be assigned varying depending on the different categories that you have for your items. And I believe Coursco has a whole listing, I think it's about 8 different items, which we've actually coincidentally set up menu sections that are the exact same. So speaking of the menu sections, here's where we assign where it falls on the point of sale menu. So I click the menu section, and there's all of the different menu sections that you can assign. You put a check mark into it, and it assigns it to that one.
Hey, Bradley?
Yep.
So if you have an item like your burger's $9 and that includes tax, what do you do? Instead of having $9 plus tax, it's $9 including tax.
So you do your calculation to find out what your regular sell price would be. So let's say it was 10%, just as a round number. So what I would do is take that list price, divide it by 10%. That's going to give me what my sale price needs to be, and then the tax on top of that would bring it up to the total price.
So there's nothing that does it automatically?
No, there isn't. Now, again, because this is what the servers see. What the guest is going to see would be whatever your printed menu is. So you could put on that, the price including tax or whatever. And then this would bring it up and it would match true to whatever your menu printed price was. The last section, oh, I got a message from John. If inactive, will the button still show up on the server point of sale? No, it will be taken off. You can permanently take items off. So you can leave it active, and when we get into the end user training, we can show how you can manipulate and move the buttons where you want. You can actually take a button away and still have the item technically active. But if it's marked inactive here, it will not be available on the point of sale. Force modifiers. In this section, we're going to be getting to an item later on. This is where we pull up our options and our alternatives. So right now, I have a bad account in there, so I'm just going to pull up just an account just to hold here. So the force modifiers, when we pull that up, what it's doing is I have all these different choices. My meat doneness, my burger toppings, and my side. What will happen is will be put over into this left-hand window as things that are available. I move them over by highlighting and then click on the arrows. And then I can choose which order I want them to come up in. So when I do a burger, I want the doneness to come up first, then the burger toppings, and then the sides. And then I can choose, is the choice mandatory? Or is it, a choice that I can bypass? In the case of my meat doneness, I need to know what the guest wants that burger cooked to. So I force the choice. The side, same idea. I need to know what side to prepare to put with it, so I make it a forced option. As for toppings, I could have a plain burger with nothing on it, and that'd be fine. Or I could put different options on it. So I don't need to know that. I make the assumption that if there's nothing entered, I want a plain burger. Otherwise, I'm going to make note of which toppings I want on it. And when we make any changes here, we click Save, and we're all set. In the last section, so I made mention when I hit the menu section, it brings up this little table, which shows all the different menu sections and which ones it's assigned to. The other tab is the items. And this is where I choose how I'm going to add in my different options. So I'll do a lookup, I'll find my meat doneness, I'll find my meat toppings, and my sides. And again, I would click Save, and that saves the whole thing together into my one burger. And that's it. So this is what the guest sees, or what the server sees on the point-of-sale terminal. Any questions on this so far as to what we've covered?
Do we have to put the sales account number in each time?
You can if you have the sales account. But what I think we'll do is we can actually go in, because we're going to be basing it upon the same as the menu sections. We can, once we get those GLs for each one, we can just do a mass update, and they'll be going to the proper sales accounts.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And great question. Any other questions out there? We're going to do this again, much like we did last time, where we're going to take a pause, break every so often, just to get some water, stretch your legs, that type of thing. So again, please be aware of that. Okay, that's it for the menu items. What we're now going to do is we're going to go to the next option in the list. Technically, is the alternative groups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip over that. We'll come back. We're going to talk about the inventory items. Now, inventory items is a little misleading. We're not going to be inventorying items, but what we need to do is create our different options. Okay, so what I've done here is a table that we see, which has all of my different options that I could possibly have in my dining room. I have them sorted by the item ID, description, the class ID. We'll get to that in a sec. That's what we set up last week. Classification, food, non-food. These are going to be set up as non-inventory because we're not inventorying. Kit, menu option, and current cost. We're not going to worry about that. And the default vendor ID, we're not going to worry about that either. You can use the search headers to search for anything. You can also sort by clicking on any of the headers. Okay, the next table, sort of down here, bottom left, the detail of the item. So if I choose my, let's go meat temperature, rare. So I have my meat doneness, one is my ID. Again, what I would recommend here would be to use your course code number, then the section that this item belongs to, and then a quick little abbreviated form of what is this option. You can go into more here in the description, so in this case, rare. You'll click on the class ID modifier, or I'm saying in the class ID, the magnifying glass, to reveal there's all those charges that you have. So in this case, we are creating an option, so I put in for modifier. It's going to ask me if I want to roll down the details. I do. That's going to bring over this classification. Unit of measure stays the same because we're not worried about that. And then we go to the site assignments, and we choose where we want it. If it's an item, or I might say an option, we will mark the item as such. So in the case of my meat done, this is an alternative, because remember I can have only one option selected. So I set them all up. For an item that has been set up as an option, like my sides, what I do is I create a side 00 item. I create it as a choice of side, and I leave the menu option as blank. I then go create my options, the side of fries. In this case, it goes to the prepared food. And then I go over and I would make this item a menu option. And I would repeat for each different option that I need for my sides. I then go back to my side 00. I go to my menu option. Now in this case, my sides I left as is. But what I can do is I bring in all my choices, and I add them right here. And then on my point of sale, when it comes up, what it will do is it will say, what would you like as your side? And this, if you notice, back when we created the menu items, when I did my item, there's that choice of side. So the choice comes up, and then it links everything that was the option for the side comes up as well. So what I'll do is I'll do that. I'll show you how that's done. So I go to the item ID, look it up, and I find my veg onion. Well, in this case, that was for burger toppings. Notice I have those fries up as a side, but they're not there. And that's simply because on my side 01, I didn't mark it as a menu option. So I'm going to do that right now, save. And if I didn't do it for the side 01, probably didn't do it for side 02, I'll do that. So I go to my menu options, and I can start adding them in. Okay, we'll turn the phones back on in a sec when the noise is gone. So I attached all my items. And there's all my different options. So now, when I pull up this side 00 choice of side, it's going to ask me, okay, which side do you want to put in? Okay, just checking on the time now. So we got time to introduce now what happens when we work with alternatives. So I would create the items just like I did here. So we'll use the example of my meat doneness, which is, as we know, an alternative. Some audio issues here. Okay, so I create my meat temperature. So it's going to be my choice. Then I have my rare, medium, medium well, and well. Create them all. I don't mark these as menu options. But what I do now is I go to my cards, food and beverage, alternatives groups, I'm going to group them all together. And notice here what I did is I created them in the side, or my mistake, the meat temp, or meat temperature. This will list all the different groupings I have up here at the top. In my group ID, I put in whatever I want to call this specific one. So I'll pull up my meat temp. That's my meat temperature. I mark, is this a grouping of food items or beverage items? And then I get this table at the bottom, which shows me all of my menu options. So I have my meat doneness, my 1, 2, and 3 for my rare, medium, and medium well. What's going to happen, the way the alternatives work, is when you call up the meat temperature, it's saying, okay, these are valid substitutions that can be put in place. Anytime I see meat temperature, any one of these can be substituted for it. So on the point of sale, I would attach the meat temperature, and then it would say, okay, you can do these alternatives as well. Which one do you want? And then you choose medium, medium well, whatever. And it slides that in. And on the receipt to the kitchen, it marks that there has been a substitution. And if we flip back to our inventory items, when we click on an item and choose its alternative tab, it shows me every other item that can be used in place of. So again, we have our different meat temperatures. For well, I could either have the well, medium, medium rare, rare, or the meat temperature. If there's any upcharges for these items, so let's say in the case of my side orders, I have a sweet potato fry option, and there's actually an increased charge of $1.25 when I order that. So I can put that in there. If you had, gravy as a side, you could put a side of gravy and have it go for 50 cents each time it's ordered. And we add the upcharge right here on the alternatives. Okay. Any questions, concerns, anything you have questions on what we've seen about the menu item, the options, or the alternatives, and how we set them up? Bear in mind, we are going to actually also go ahead and do some hands-on training after our first little break that's coming up. Are there any questions out there?
Nope.
Okay, so this is a good stopping point. I've got now 20 minutes to 3. What I'm going to say is, how about we take a short break for about 10 minutes? So at 2:50, we'll come back. And we'll continue on. We'll do some of the hands-on trainings. We have to do some entering of items to make sure you guys know what's going on with that. So again, 10 minutes. Feel free to get a water, get up and take a stretch, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes. But I can show you what the point of sale is going to look like and how those menu options pop up. I've got a demo one on mine, and I just thought we don't need to focus on the training part of it, but just to see what we've created and how that looks as the end product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this. And here's a point of sale that I've set up. This is my own little test one. It's going to be set up very similar to yours. So we have the table and our table numbers. Notice I have my table garden and my table 1. And then I click on the table to sit down at it, and I get a couple of options of my items. So I'm going to go to my main dishes, and I do a steak. And on my steak, I get a choice of side. So a salad, a baked potato, or the fries. And if I choose that, it's going to fill it in and move me on to the next option. And in this case, I get an option for my baked potato that I chose as to what toppings I want. I click Next, and how do I want my steak cooked? Blue, rare, medium, or well done. I'm going to go blue. And there's my item. And that's how the point of sale is going to look when we create all of our items. I don't think I have one for the grilled cheese, but we'll see. I do a grilled cheese, and it brings me up a universal modifier because I told my grilled cheese that I could do that. Here's with the pizza. I have a couple different things here. So I have a choice of sauce, which is going to be an alternative. So I'm going to go with the good old marinara. Then my toppings. These are options, so I can choose 4 options. My crust, and what cheese type do I want on it? With the cheddar mozzarella. And you notice on each one of these, as I'm looking through, here's where those upcharges pop in. So my marinara was an extra $1, so that got added on. So when I send this order to the kitchen, I'll show you what that looks like. Let me cancel that. And there's what my kitchen printout is going to look like with all of its different options. So are there any questions on what we've been working through today and sort of where we're working towards? I also hope that you're starting to see the benefit of having done that exercise with the spreadsheet, of keying in the table numbers and organizing it that way, of organizing the alternatives and options, and then organizing the entire menu and how it's broken out and what it is comprised of. So what I'm thinking we can do now is we can sort of disconnect from the web but keep the phone line running. And if you want to start putting it into your own individual systems, into the live setup, and then I'll stay on the line. If you have any questions on it, I can walk you through what to do. Does that sound good with everyone? Are there any objections to that?
No, I think it's all right.
Okay. So again, if everybody's comfortable, go ahead and you can log out of the web meeting, or you can keep it running if you want to. That's fine, in case you want to see how to do something.
I tried calling in, but I don't know. Okay. I'm doing it wrong. So your user.
Hey, Brad, this is Keith. Can you go back into that live feed one more time?
I'm sorry, into the which one?
The live POS you had up just a minute ago. Can you go back into that and show me the beverages you had up again?
Okay.
I just missed it. I had to step out.
Okay. So, on mine. Okay, so I would go in, I click on the table, and I'm going to choose my main dish. I go with my...
I saw that part. Can you show me like how your drop beers show up when you click on that, or do you have them set up?
I don't have them set up at the moment, not the way that we're going to be working, but I can show you sort of where it goes. So I have my draft beer, and I created my own for my beer.
Gotcha.
I then have, a half pint, a pint, or a growler.
Gotcha.
Then I do the same thing. I set those up as alternatives because I can only choose in one glass whether it's a pint, half pint, or growler.
So essentially on that page you're showing right there where it says My Beer, that would actually be like Sierra Nevada, the different types.
That's exactly it, yes. So what you would have is you'd have like your draft beer, you could have bottled beer, however you dispense it, and then you'd have it in there, and you'd have all the different options. What the open item, I use that as an example of ones that I don't regularly stock, but I do want to track and be able to sell it through here. So I keep it as an open bar item where I can put in wherever I want the price to be. So maybe if I have a rotating seasonal, I could, say it's going to be $5.75 for a pint. Now it doesn't do anything other than just says open item at $5.75, but it is attached to my sales account for an open item, so I do track it that way. Again, if you're sort of looking at that, you have some questions on setting up your individual beer menus, just let me know and we can go through it and do sort of a one-to-one on that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My pleasure. Again, great question. So, like I said, we'll leave this up and open. And as you're going through, if you want to keep the web meeting going so you can see all of that, you can type your questions right into the chat window and we can answer them that way. Or if it's something we need to put into a parking lot, we can do that as well. So everybody's able to get connected to their own database. And again, remember, you want to be doing your setups in live. And then what will happen is we'll move over, we'll copy them to the Play system once you're brought up online.